Okay, here's a wild thought for you. What if the real path to joy, I mean true joy, isn't about getting more pleasure, but actually denying it? I know, it sounds completely backward, right? But this is a radical idea from the 16th century mystic St. John of the Cross, and it pretty much flips everything we think we know about happiness on its head. So let's explore this paradox together. So yeah, that's the central question we're digging into today. Could intentionally saying no to certain pleasures, could that actually lead to something deeper, a more profound kind of fulfillment? It's a wild concept for sure, so let's really unpack what he means by that. All right, so the first step on this path, it's all about our senses. The idea is that by, detaching from the joys we get from sight, sound, taste, touch, all that stuff, we can actually unlock some seriously powerful benefits. And not just spiritually, but in our day-to-day lives too. And get this, the benefits he talks about are surprisingly concrete. For starters, you get your focus back and your virtues get stronger. Then, you find yourself becoming more spiritual. He even says it's like moving from an earthly to a more angelic state. On top of that, your spiritual strength and, your vigor just goes way up. And the big one, the finale, there's this promise of a massive return on your investment, spiritually speaking. St. Paul really drew a sharp line in the sand on this one. He basically contrasts the sensual person, someone totally caught up in the physical world, with the spiritual person who's able to see these deeper truths. The whole idea is that if you overindulge in sensory pleasures, it kind of fogs up your spiritual windshield. You just can't see clearly. And remember that massive return I just mentioned? Well, check this out. The promise, and this comes straight from the Gospels, is that for every single joy you willingly give up, you'll get 100-fold back, 100 times, and not in some far-off future, but right here in this life, in the form of spiritual satisfaction and awareness. It's like this incredible spiritual multiplier effect. And you can actually see these ideas laid out right here in the original text. I mean, it spells out the benefits and explicitly says, for one joy, they will receive 100-fold. So this isn't just some modern interpretation, this is the core of the whole argument. Which leads to a pretty big question, right? If we're supposed to deny sensory joy, then what's left to enjoy? Well, that brings us to the next piece of the puzzle. There's a second, and what's considered a superior category of things we can rejoice in, and those are called moral goods. These are seen as a much higher form of joy. So think about the difference here. Sensory goods, they're fleeting, they're distracting, they come and go. But moral goods, they're the exact opposite. They're enduring, they're noble, and they bring this real sense of peace. So we're not talking about a quick hit of pleasure anymore. We're talking about building a solid, virtuous character that lasts. Okay, so what are we talking about when we say moral goods? Well, it's things like practicing virtues, doing works of mercy, following God's law. Basically, you can think of them as the building blocks of a truly good and ethical life. And rejoicing in these things, that's not just okay, it's actually encouraged. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. And this is where things get really fascinating. Because it turns out that even celebrating your own good deeds can be a huge spiritual trap if your motivation, your reason for doing them, isn't pure. Now, this is where the logic gets really subtle, so you have to follow closely. We're being asked to look past the what, the action itself, and really examine the why. Why are we really doing these good things? And the answer to that question, well, it changes everything. This really gets to the heart of it all. I mean, ask yourself, are you doing good works to get praise? For that little hit of self-satisfaction? For some kind of earthly reward? Or are you doing them purely for the love of God and for eternal life, without a single thought about what's in it for you? Because according to this, only that second motivation has any real spiritual worth. And there are two really powerful examples that drive this point home. First, you've got these ancient pagan philosophers. Yeah, they practiced virtues, but they did it for worldly fame. So their reward? It was temporary, it was earthly, and that was it. But the second example, and this one is even more pointed, is the parable of the foolish virgins. They did good things, sure, but their motivation was just vain self-satisfaction. And this is the incredible twist in the story. The foolish virgins, they were rejected.
But not because their actions were bad. That's the crazy part. Their actions were good. They were rejected because the joy they took in those good deeds was pointed at themselves, not at God. Their motivation made all their good works spiritually worthless, just gone.
And if you look at the source text here, you can see this exact passage being discussed. It just goes to show how central this parable is to the whole argument. The main point: intention is everything. The action by itself just isn't enough. So, after all that, what's the big takeaway? What's the bottom line from this 16th century guide to finding joy? Well, it's not about how many good deeds you rack up. It's not about how big or impressive they are. All those external ways we have of keeping score, they're just tossed out the window. Because the true spiritual value of any action is found in the purity of the love for God with which it's done. That's it. It all comes down to that one thing. Was it done for you, or was it done out of a selfless love for God? And that, of course, leaves us with a pretty challenging question to ask ourselves, doesn't it? If you strip away the search for pleasure, and you get rid of the hope for praise, and you even remove that nice little feeling of self-satisfaction, what's left? Beyond all that, what is it that's truly driving your good deeds? That's a pretty profound thought to carry with you.